Hello and welcome to another episode of the CHGO Fire Podcast, presented by Coors Light, the official domestic beer partner of Chicago Fire FC. Chicago, choose chill. Go to CoorsLight.com/CHGO Soccer to get Coors Light delivered straight to your door. Celebrate responsibly. Coors Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado. I'm Alex Campbell, and I am joined today by Alan Krolikowski, another member of the Men in Red family, host of the Bonfire Podcast over on the MIR 97 Podcast Network. Among other things, you can also find him at fire games with various brass instruments. Alan, welcome to the show.
It's great to be here. It's good times, especially after the win. We're all feeling a lot better.
Yes, we only have one game to talk about because of the international break, but what a game it was. Also, Shaqiri seems definitely gone, and we're going to give out some mid-season superlatives as we have officially reached the halfway point of the MLS regular season. Also, before we get going, I have to say a thank you to a whole bunch of people as well for the opportunity to be on the call on AM 890 over the weekend on the Fire Radio Call. Shout out to Dason Robinson, friend of the show, for calling me in at the last minute to fill in for him. Really appreciate Dason thanking me for that. And then shout out to a whole bunch of other people, Max Anderson, Jonathan Bregman, Jeff Spraveman, and Rudy Hodgson from the Fire, among others, for helping make it a great experience. Really enjoyed it, and it certainly did not hurt that the Fire, Allen, played well. Toronto FC won. Chicago Fire 4?
Four.
That is 4 games unbeaten. That is 4 goals. Fire only make one roster change going into this game. It is Arnaud Souquet replacing Rafael Schihos, which we later learn is because Rafa is off getting his green card, first reported, before the team even did, by your colleague and longtime friend of the show, Alex Calabrese.
Yep.
Also reporting that Fede Navarro is working on a green card. We will get more into the ramifications of that later. The result was Arnaud Souquet playing in the back three, Alan Arigoni out on the right as the wingback. I thought at first, when I first saw the lineup, we would see Arigoni in the back three. What was kind of your reaction to seeing that particular group of defenders all listed on the Fire lineup?
Well, considering how Arnaud Souquet has been for the Fire as of late, especially in terms of him being on defense, I was rather scared. I definitely knew one of our other good friends over at MIR, good old Arai, was he's probably been tensing up seeing him in there as opposed to our usual starting defensive backs. So I was when I looked at it first, I was like, oh, okay, this is different. But let's keep the vibes going, especially going after the last win against the Galaxy.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's gonna happen. People get injured all the time, so you just have to, I guess, improvise. Yep,
and we saw Mauricio Pineda shift over to the left side of the back three, which, again, we weren't sure how that would go. Went pretty well. As for Toronto, missing a whole bunch of dudes. This was very much a case of playing a team at the right time. Sean Johnson, former Fire, longtime goalkeeper, international duty with the U.S. Jonathan Osorio, Richie Larea, international duty with Canada. Weird for Larea, he's played only 2 games of soccer this year, and yet Jesse Marsh called him into national team camp. Anyway, Federico Bernardeschi and Nixon Gomes both suspended for red cards. Bernardeschi significantly, not only because he's been so good, but because it was a really dumb red card that he got suspended for. Basically, if you did not see it, he was on a yellow, and late in the game against DC United, he was whistled for a foul he didn't like, picked up the ball, and tried to boot it out of the stadium, and was given his second yellow. Tyrese Spicer also hurt, starting left wing back, but they did have Lorenzo Insigne in the lineup, back from a combination of injury and paternity duty. The Fire, it was nice to see them be on top of this game early on. We don't get a lot of games where the Fire are the team right from the go, taking the initiative and being the team that's driving the game.
No, we don't see the Fire being the team that has an urgency to actually win the game, especially in the game against Orlando. Even in the Galaxy game, they very much started off on the wrong foot, conceding early, conceding stupidly. I still see that Orlando goal pop up in all my feeds. Everywhere it's getting reposted, and I'm just like, oh, deal. But, it's that sense of urgency all of a sudden. There must have been just sort of this change of mentality, change of vibes. I mean, because Klopas is the vibes guy. So.
Right, that's always kind of been Frank's selling point, is that he's going to be the feel-good guy. He's going to be the locker room guy. And, there has been a maybe significant change to the locker room as of late. We will dive more into that later in the show. A pretty uneventful first half until just a ridiculous kind of a slapstick sequence by Toronto. 41st minute, Fire get the opening goal. There's a back pass hit to Luka Gavron, the Toronto goalkeeper, who is going somewhere. He's just wandering off mid-play.
I think he just forgot that they're playing at this point.
I mean, it's not like he was going to get his water bottle. I don't know where he was going, but he recovers enough to deny Ugo Kuipers at point-blank range. Play goes on, and then Fabian Herbers with a great drive into the box, a left-footed cross, headed home by Marin Haile Selassie. Nice to see the Fire also take advantage of a really bizarre mistake from an opponent.
I mean, that's sort of how our opponents have been taking advantage out of us when we make stupid mistakes out in the back. It's good to see that the team, instead of immediately retreating to, I guess, reorganize the defense, they realized that the ball is still just circling around right in the box, and Herbers just said, mine.
Yeah, and Fabi bringing that energy, and the Fire's counter press was certainly a feature of this game. And Marin Haile Selassie, for the second game in a row, gets that start, nominally as Ugo Kuipers' partner in the front two, gets his goal, so he's doing pretty well, I think, to nail down that spot. I said live on the broadcast, can the Fire, now can they concentrate? Can they see out this 1-0 lead to halftime? The answer is no. No, they cannot, because speaking of goalkeeping mistakes, Insigne takes a pretty harmless-looking shot, and Chris Brady appears to just totally miss the ball.
I think it may have been like a screening issue. He just didn't see exactly who was in front of him, how the ball was going out, so he was just not in the exact position he wanted to be, so the ball sort of just trickled out of his arms, which is sort of a rare mistake, I guess, to see from Brady.
Yeah, it's not the sort of mistake, if Chris Brady's going to make a mistake, the shot-stopping part of his game is really not a thing that's ever been in question. That's always been rated very highly, so it was strange. Also strange in this play is it was waved off for offside, despite not a single Toronto player involved in this play being anywhere near offside at any point. So this should not have required VAR's help, but it did. 1-1. The good thing here was to see Chris Brady immediately after, hand goes up to say, that's on me, my bad. So the question at half was, can the Fire recollect themselves? Can they shake that off? Can Brady shake that off? What's the second half going to look like? The second half started well for the Fire, and they were then rewarded with another lead. 57th minute, Fire get their second. It's another Toronto defensive lapse. This time, Kevin Long, the center back, just gets caught on the ball by Kuipers.
Yep.
And then he fights off two more defenders all by himself, curls in the shot with his left foot, 2-1. That is a DP striker goal right there.
That's someone you pay $12 million.
Correct.
That's when you've seen the highlights of Hugo Kuipers back in Belgium. He was the guy that would either get the opportunity to score just one tap somehow, being in the correct position or at the right time, or just creating that opportunity to himself. And that is him creating that opportunity himself. He just was given full reign up front. And something that's been noticed, especially since the Galaxy game, especially, players are just taking their own freedoms, essentially. They're a lot more free to just move left to right, front and center, essentially, because I felt like previously everything was just so rigid. Now it's just so much free-flowing, and just that plus one of the goals coming up later, it was fresh.
Yeah, and so this is great from Kuipers. He also was the Fire player who did media mid last week. He talked about how he feels, better when they're winning. He also gave a big shout out to the Chicago weather, although certainly not the weather this week, because given that it's his first season, he's had a lot of family and friends from abroad coming and visiting, and he was basically saying how it's been very nice that every time he has family or friends come over from Europe to visit, that the weather's always very nice. So that's been good for him. He seems to be having a nice time right now. The goals are there to match. 3 minutes later, it's 3-1 Fire. It looks like the ball has been given away. I mentioned the Fire's good counter-pressing in this game. Alan Arigoni is all the way at the Toronto end line. He fights to win it back. There's a couple good quick passes between Guti and Haile Selassie. Guti hits a cutback that at first looks to be going to nobody. And then stepping in from the left side of your screen, here comes Mauricio Pineda, of all people, to curl in a first-time strike. 3-1. That's Pineda's first goal since last August, and that was some pretty nice soccer.
And that's exactly what I was mentioning about the freedom of movement, because that sort of cutback pass sort of when you look back, it kind of looked like Fabi was supposed to be there, and he sort of like steps out, like trying to maybe catch the intercept. But because you have players that are just, first of all, surrounding the box and are moving up freely, you have Mauricio Pineda out there who sees the ball going towards him, and he's like, I must go, my people need me, and just thunders it to the back of the net. And it's refreshing. I love to see it, and it's more of that, please.
It's also a nice moment for Pineda, who in the Galaxy game, the last game before this one, got straight just yanked off the field at halftime for being bad. He had picked up a silly yellow. I believe him and Arigoni were both on yellows on that right side, so Klopas wanted to get one of them out of there. And so I think there was a question coming into this game, would Pineda start? I would guess that if Rafael Chijos is available, Pineda does not start this game, and it is Arnaud Souquet replacing him on the right of the back three. But Pineda shifts over. He's in a position here to, just kind of curl this into the corner. The Fire almost get a third goal in a 10-minute span. Kuipers whiffs on a chance and then quickly turns onto his left foot and hits the post. They hit the post again later, this time from Brian Gutierrez, just having a go from distance. This was not Guti's best game overall in a full 90. Not his most active, but two things. He was more active as this game went on, and he worked his way into it. Second, happy 21st birthday yesterday to Brian Gutierrez.
Have a drink.
Coors Light specifically, we would endorse that. But again, so as we said on Twitter yesterday, celebrate responsibly, Coors Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado. So Guti, again, not his flashiest game, but as we'll talk about in a moment, we already talked about it. He does have an assist. He's playing a role. But again, he doesn't have to have his best game every game, but he continues to find ways to make a positive impact.
True, and I was talking about it on the Bonfire episode that we recorded recently. You should listen to that, the Bonfire, Men in Red 97. How there really wasn't a single player that had like a bad game. If anything, like you mentioned, Guti, maybe an average game, but I think this new formation and these new tactics that Frank has finally figured out something out has just given the freedom for everyone to just do as essentially what needs to be done.
Right.
And even if Guti wasn't shining in this game, someone else was shining, which was definitely like players like Hugo Kuipers. It doesn't have to be every game. But in terms of the consistency of the team just doing well, that's what's most important. And that was one thing that Hugo said in his interview, consistency.
Right. The Fire actually then saved the best for last. 89th minute, here comes goal number 4. Arigoni just out of nowhere. This guy's a right back. He does a nice cut, does a dribble onto his left foot, and just curls it far post. Cherry on top, a really validating also decision for him to be at wingback in this game rather than the guy in the back three with Souquet getting forward. Not to say that Arnaud Souquet isn't capable of this, but Alan Arigoni continues to be, even when the Fire weren't playing well, he was one of the brighter spots. And as, to your point, as the team has settled into this new approach over the last month, he's definitely a guy who seems to have been taking full advantage of these new circumstances.
Oh, yeah, and taking just full advantage of just taking matters into your own hands. I feel like the Fire, at the start of this season, as well as in the spots of other seasons, have just been so rigid, and we've seen maybe like good like moving forwards into the final third, but then sort of like slowing down, stopping, passing it to each other, attempting a cross here, there, everywhere to a player that is on the defense of the other team. So just seeing Arigoni just taking the chance into his own hand and just thundering it, curling it. Same thing with Pineda from the outside, sending it. And then to the last game against the Galaxy with Gutierrez just being like, fine, I'll do it myself, ping, bing, in. Just seeing that independence from each player. It's just, and it also just builds confidence. And I feel like right now, there's a bit of confidence brewing in that locker room. Now, as fans, are we confident that this is going to be sustainable? Yet to be seen. Because this is Chicago Fire Football Club we are talking about.
Yeah, and there are 2 very hard games on the road still ahead in this road trip. Further efforts, Frank Klopas, coach of the match day from MLS, and Fabian Herbers, 2 assists in this game. Kind of quietly, but a good workmanlike performance. He also makes the team of the match day. So we've alluded to a lot of things so far. Particularly, we're looking ahead to the summer transfer window, and there are some things happening that could make it an interesting few months for the Fire. But first, this podcast is, of course, brought to you by Coors Light. And what an opportunity you have if you live in Chicago this week to choose chill, because my goodness, if you can find any way to chill this week, more power to you. It is hot, and when you choose to chill, when you choose a chill mindset, that is the best time to reach for a Rocky Mountain Cold Coors Light. I'm sure there were lots of Fire fans, embracing a chill mindset this weekend in celebration of the win. I'm sure there was lots of people over Father's Day weekend embracing that chill mindset. You hear it from dads everywhere. Sometimes all you want is to, for Father's Day, to be left alone and do nothing and simply chill. And maybe you're doing that alongside a Coors Light. Coors Light's Mountain Cold Refreshment is the perfect choice when you choose to chill, whether it's socializing or just hanging out in this baking hot sun, should you choose to do so, or as a way to stay cool and enjoy a game, whether out at a Sox or Cubs game this coming week, a Fire or a Red Stars game, whatever you're doing. When you choose to chill, choose the beer that is as cold as the Rockies. That's what it means when those mountains on that Coors Light can or bottle turn blue. Coors Light is cold lagered, cold filtered, and cold packaged for a smoother finish. When you embrace a chill mindset, it's a good time to choose chill and crack open a Coors Light. Coors Light is mountain cold refreshment, crisp and refreshing as the Colorado Rockies. Make the most out of the times you choose to chill and choose Coors Light. Get Coors Light delivered straight to your door with Instacart by going to CoorsLight.com/CHGO Soccer. Celebrate responsibly. Coors Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado. CHGO Fire is also brought to you by Shady Rays. Talk about a thing you could use during this week, especially when it is hot and sunny outside. With the premium quality shades that are built to last, our friends at Shady Rays have you covered with their premium polarized sunglasses that do not break the bank. No spending hundreds of dollars on a single pair. Shady Rays is an independent company offering a world-class product. Over 300,000 people have rated them 5 stars. Their shades are durable. They have great optics. They are the perfect choice for all of your outdoor adventures, whether taking in a sporting event, tanning outside, going swimming in the lake, doing whatever in your backyard over the weekend, going on a hike, going for a run. Shady Rays has tons of styles. They've got something that will be perfectly fit for you. Hundreds of options to choose from. And they probably also have a style in your team's favorite colors, not just, your standard black, gray, silver, whole bunch of options with Shady Rays. I was wearing Shady Rays the other day hiking when I was on actually on a vacation out in Denver with some friends. Shady Rays coming in clutch for me there. Also great, just when you're driving around on these bright and sunny days to help you stay safe with their polarized lenses on the road. If your Shady Rays ever go missing or take an unexpected hit, don't sweat it. There's a lost and found insane protection of all eyewear, backed by their lost or broken replacement guarantee. Or if you don't love your shades, exchange them for a new pair or return worry-free within 30 days. No risk when you shop. The Shady Rays team always has your back with their personal and quick support. Exclusive for CHGO listeners, Shady Rays is giving their best deal of the season. Head to ShadyRays.com and use code CHGO for 35% off polarized sunglasses. Try for yourself the shades rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people. All right, so the other big news in Fireland this week, Alan, besides that win, was ahead of Switzerland's Euro 2024 opener. Yep. Shaqiri did some media, and he made it pretty clear he wants to go back to Europe. He said that in the context of his Fire contract expiring, which is at the end of this season. Also had some criticism for Georg Heitz and some of the moves the Fire have made, which, of course, is quite ironic. It reminds me of his comments after the Inter Miami win last year, where he said something to the effect of designated players are very important, and if you get those signings wrong, it can be costly. Shaq has always been very good at communicating through the media and communicating in press conferences. This is just another data point that says he's never wearing this shirt again, right?
Pretty much. Unless nothing comes about, he might maybe play like 1 or 2. But I mean, no, I'm fairly certain that he's probably going to stay in Europe. He wants to go to Europe. I don't blame him. No one blames him at this point.
Yeah, this hasn't worked.
It just hasn't worked. And it's like, people are saying that he just didn't care, that he never put in the work in the first place. Now I don't want to say play devil's advocate, but he does. It's probably just not his play style. Of course, he's getting to a certain age where he's not going to be playing the certain style of soccer that is played here in Chicago. it's essentially, I think Tim Hotze over at the Bonfire, he was like comparing the numbers between the seasons he had over here in Chicago versus the ones where he had over in Europe, whether Liverpool or Bayern. They look fairly similar. So this was essentially just like oh, look, here's this big player, he'll bring in some fans, he'll sell some shirts, he'll put in some work, but it's not exactly the work that we needed to win, essentially. So if it's anything, it's just unfortunate that the system that we had here through how many managers and players, that it just hasn't essentially gelled.
No, and when you think about what we were praising the Fire for in that win over Toronto, particularly that high pressing, you can't do that with Shaqiri and the team. That's not a thing you're able to do. He's not the sort of guy who, to your point, at this point in his career, is going to do the sort of running we're seeing from Ugo Kuipers or from Marin Haile Selassie or Alan Arigoni or Jonathan Dean. He's just not going to be one of those guys pushing high up the field, and we've seen that the Fire have to carry his lack of defensive contribution, and that holds everybody else back. Again, there's a couple ways he can leave. The Fire could sell him. I would assume it would only be probably for a free transfer, buying out the remainder of his contract.
Yeah, it would be a lot less than what we got him, but that's usually how it is with DPs, I guess.
Or they could cut their losses entirely when that second contract termination that is expected to go into the MLS roster rules come this summer goes into effect, and you can send him to Lugano, although maybe that's not exactly what he wants based on his Heights-related comments. That was certainly interesting. We mentioned that Rafael Chihos has obtained a green card.
Yep.
As our friend Alex reported, Fede Navarro is also working on one. So that means the Fire, if Shaqiri leaves, and if you buy down Gaston Jimenez again, Schrodinger's contract there, Gaston Jimenez, is he TAM? Is he a DP? No one really knows for sure.
He is Gaston Jimenez.
Correct. He is a bit of an enigma on and off the field. You have a position when you're the Fire here where you will have sufficient international spots and potentially 2 full open designated player spots. That creates a lot of potential for the Fire to alter the roster and improve the roster this summer. Of course, the $1 million question is, do you trust the Fire to make more Ugo Kuipers signings and fewer Xherdan Shaqiri signings?
It also highlights the possibility of another head coach, because we'll see how long Frank Klopas wants to be in the head coach position, considering that he didn't originally want to be here. Well, he wants to be in the club, but
he wants to work for the Fire. Him being permanent manager after being the interim was not his idea.
No, he wanted to be more in like the front office or sort of like assistants on the side. So these whole situations of open DP slots, open international slots, as well as what we're seeing right now, a team that is doing something and is gelling in a certain way is definitely going to attract players, could attract managers that could say, I could work with this. Now, of course, Georg Heitz has to also, be willing to work on this as well, and to like sort of, how many more chances essentially.
Yeah, and that was kind of the question going into this offseason. What's so strange is that this past offseason was pretty unequivocally the most positive one on paper that the Fire have had in terms of transfer windows. Kuipers looks good. Acosta, shaky at moments, but looks solid. Andrew Gutman, a signing we all liked. He's just been very injured, so that is a bit unfortunate in that regard. So, I mean, those were all positive developments. I think it's pretty clear that the places you would spend that money, those DP spots, are a flexible attacker, somebody who's comfortable either as a winger or maybe alongside Kuipers, or maybe simply somebody who can rotate with Guti and Haile Selassie and kind of those dual 10 positions that we saw them taking up in Toronto. And then the other obvious place you'd want depth is in midfield. Kellen Acosta and Fabian Herbers, that's been a very nice partnership, but we've seen the strain when Fede's been hurt, when Gaston Jimenez has been hurt. There hasn't been the necessary depth in that position in that area of the field, and you could certainly elevate the quality there as well.
True.
Again, I don't think that either Herbers or Acosta has been, playing in a way that's asking for them to be replaced. But again, it's about depth. It's about how do you survive the injury bug? How do you survive the international window situation? So that's where I would go with them because I think you do still want Brian Gutierrez to have a big role. Mm-hmm. And especially, I don't think it really is in anybody's interest to then, push him back out of position because clearly he has been freed by being allowed to play more in the center of the field. Should note, the Fire do have all their U22 spots filled. There's no movement there. That is Guti, Yorios Koutias, and Fede Navarro. Yes, Fede Navarro is still on a U22 deal. If he is to re-sign a contract at some point, he will no longer have that designation. But Guti and Koutias are both stuck there for multiple reasons. Guti literally just signed that contract and is still only 21. Koutias is still only 19. So those two aren't moving off anywhere else. Besides the positions I mentioned, Alan, anywhere that if you were, advising the Fire sporting department where you would think it might be helpful to add, the other spot that kind of stands out to me is left back or left wing back because Chase Gasper, again, was supposed to come in and be depth. He has not been available to even be that. And Andrew Gutman has now had 2 pretty serious injuries, so maybe that's a spot as good a servant as Jonathan Dean is being right now. I wouldn't be surprised if maybe that's somewhere the Fire look to, reinforce further.
And I also wouldn't be surprised to see if there was a sort of a change out, sort of even in the center back position, whether you got players that are unfortunately making a few more mistakes than usual, like Rafa Chijos. You have Tehran, who sometimes just, he's got that dog in him, but sometimes that dog gets him in trouble.
Although he's been better lately, the concern I've more seen recently about Carlos Tehran is, there was the whole thing at the beginning of the season that he handed in a transfer request with 2 days left in the MLS transfer window, and so everyone said, also he was hurt.
True.
So it was like, no, that isn't happening.
True.
He's now playing very well and is basically putting in a great advertisement for any team in the world who's playing in a back 3 system for, hey, do you need just a really big athletic guy who can win headers and shut down physical opposing center forwards? Carlos Tehran is currently as marketable maybe as he has ever been. So there is, of course, the question, you going to be able to keep Carlos Tehran? If the right offer comes in this summer, is he going to be somebody you can hold on to, given that he has expressed that he would like to leave and is playing very well? Now, maybe with the team playing very well and him playing better, maybe he's happier. Maybe he's more content to stay. But no, I do take your point that Chijos has clearly taken a step back. Arno Suquet filled in admirably this last weekend. You don't really want somebody that size, though, playing center back.
True.
Pineda, you only really want one of those kind of guys, those tweener DM/center back guys in the back 3. So, no, I could see some shifting there as well. Should note the European transfer window opens July 1st. Technically, I think the Premier League window is already open, but you haven't really seen any movement there because teams are generally waiting for these summer international tournaments to play themselves out. Also, there's no sense, even if you've agreed to transfer, to really announce it at this point. So that's still slow. MLS transfer window opens on July 18th. We're going to give out some superlatives, some awards for the midway point. But first, I have to tell you about a couple more friends of ours at CHGO who make what we do here possible. The first returning sponsor for this summer, Sunnyside Cannabis Dispensary, your home for judgment-free cannabis shopping and a place where all kinds of visitors are welcome to explore, discover, and purchase a wide array of their high-quality products. They have everything you need to elevate your summer. Sunnyside is a one-stop shop for all your cannabis needs with an expertly curated menu, over 100 strains to choose from, plus easy online ordering and in-store pickup. You make your orders online, select the time you want to go pick up, and you can do so at your convenience. Sunnyside is Illinois' favorite dispensary and currently has locations in Wrigleyville and River North, as well as out in the suburbs and beyond, Champaign, South Beloit, and more. If you're just starting out, Sunnyside has expert guidance and brands they know you'll love, like Good News and Mindy's, and their staff is super friendly and helpful. If you're just beginning your shopping experience, or if you're a pro, they've got you covered. Over 100 strains on the menu, new ones added weekly. They know that you as their customer will love their Cresco and Florical's incredible quality and consistent products. They have so many brands, we could list them all, but we'd be here a very long time. Again, it's easy to order online. They're here to help in store as well. You can head to sunnyside.shop and use code HICHGO. That's HICHGO at checkout for 35% off your favorite brands, Cresco, Good News, and more, and elevate your first purchase. Again, that is code HICHGO at checkout. Sunnyside Cannabis Dispensary. Right buys every day, only for 21 and over, or Illinois medical card holders. We've also got a ton of stuff going on at CHGO that I want to tell you about. You can join CHGO Diehards and Beyond for the inaugural Cookout Classic Golf Tournament that's presented by Miller Lite, Shady Rays, and Circus Sports. That's out in the western suburbs in West Chicago at St. Andrews Golf and Country Club. That's later this summer. Check out the events page on the CHGO website for that. You can sign up as an individual or bring your friends as a twosome or a foursome. And there's a whole bunch of stuff that comes included with all of that. The Bears crew, including our producer for today, Greg Braggs, is off to London to take in the Bears at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium later this summer. You can head to truefantravel.com to make your deposit there and be a part of that very memorable trip. The Chicago Bears hype train continuing to build. We've got a Cubs trip up to Milwaukee on June 29th, presented by Circus Sportsbook. Cody Delmendo and some other CHGO friends as well will be up there for that trip to Wrigley North. Meanwhile, on the south side, you can join the CHGO White Sox crew and other Southside diehards for a takeover on June 24th. That's coming up very, very quickly against the LA Dodgers. Go see Shohei Ohtani and maybe the White Sox. Garrett Crochet, I believe, is slated to start that game, so that's another nice reason to go. Sure. Also, I hope all of our friends who follow the CHGO account saw the excellent, if fiery episode of CHGO Bulls yesterday. You can join Matt Peck and Big Dave and the CHGO crew for an epic NBA Draft Live show at PB&J in the West Loop, just a couple blocks from where we are speaking to you now. They'll be giving away Bulls memorabilia, awesome CHGO swag throughout the night. Coors Light is a presenting sponsor of that and running specials. You can see all of that and more at allchgo.com/events. Also, a reminder that it's a great opportunity right now with all this going on in the summer to become a diehard. You get access to the diehard members-only Discord, the CHGO Lounge. Come talk Fire, come talk Red Stars, come talk Euros in the soccer channel. We've got a bit of everything on that front. You get a free t-shirt when you sign up, and man, do we have some cool merch going on right now. The Chicago collection still available for purchase. So much good stuff there. So check out everything going on at allchgo.com. All right, Alan, let's do some mid-season superlatives before we get out of here. We are halfway through the Major League Soccer season. Yes, it has flown by, although that pace is going to change a bit because there are Olympics coming. The schedule's a little favorable to the summer tournaments. The Fire are going to be playing fewer home games down the stretch of the season because of Bears. So, it has felt like a lot, but we are at the halfway point. So let's start. We're also going to look at the whole first half. Yes, the last 2 weeks have been very fun. The last month, very fun, but the season has been more than that. And with that in mind, our CHGO Fire first half MVP is none other than the goalkeeper, the Chicago suburban native himself, Chris Brady. Maybe Chris Brady hasn't had the perfect season, but, through the ups and downs of this year, it feels like, Alan, that Chris Brady has maybe been the Fire's most consistent contributor.
Not only consistent contributor, but also saving grace. Things would probably have been a lot worse if it wasn't for Chris Brady. He's probably, like you mentioned, the most consistent out of all the players from the start of the season to right now. Of course, he had his little lapse against the Toronto, but still, he's been definitely someone that's been keeping us out of deeper trouble than we've already have essentially placed ourselves through the start of this season. So he's been keeping a lot of the team and the back line on his back.
And it was good to see in that game against Toronto an opportunity. He has picked up his team and his teammates so many times this season. It was nice to see his teammates pick him up with their performance in that second half. He also had a pretty solid second half. There was that save on the Lorenzo Insigne free kick in particular that was pretty notable, but he just looked confident. He was doing really well to claim crosses and corners. Just generally, I thought that was a nice bounce-back performance. Other candidates for that might have been Fabian Herbers. Maybe gets a shout there. He's just been a very consistent, often quietly consistent guy, being the team's Swiss Army knife. A recency pick might have been Ugo Kuipers, just because he's more recently really started to round into form. But I think it's still a little too soon to award him team MVP just yet.
Yeah, I think it's a bit too soon. He's finding his pace. He's finding a way to essentially score and a way to work in the new formation that Klopas has created. Beforehand, you could definitely see he was very tied down, very frustrated. But he's coming out of his shell. I think he's on pace to actually make double-digit goals, which we haven't seen that since Robert Barrich a few years ago. So, yeah, once we get to near the end of the season, we'll see because it will definitely be maybe up to those two.
Yeah, people do forget that Robert Baric actually did have one pretty good goal-scoring season. It was just, in the context of a lot of blah.
No, and literally right after they announced he's going to be leaving the club, all of a sudden he started scoring, like, multiple goals, like, even in a game. So, like...
Yep, yeah. So that was tough. Speaking, though, of Ugo Kuipers, he is our CHGO Fire Newcomer of the Year.
Woo.
So far. We had a few choices here. Alan Arigoni, Colin Acosta, both honorable mentions in this regard. But as we were just talking about, it took a little while. It seems like we are now seeing a record-signing striker playing like a record-signing striker.
We're finally seeing the hype that we were following when the news broke out, when the rumors were sort of circulating. I remember when the Twitter notifications were going out, I was in the middle of class. I was not paying attention because I was like, what is going on in Fireland? We're getting a really good striker out from Belgium. And, of course, the start has been a bit, but that's been for honestly the entire team. Just like Frank said, just figuring out what works. And now they're sort of figuring out what's working. They've been taking those baby steps to get there. Now they're going into strides. So, and I'm hoping that Ugo Kuipers really strides forward as the number 9. So, honestly, yeah.
Yeah, all signs are pointing in the right direction, and we've talked about it on this show before, that it's not like he's been underperforming. At least I haven't checked now this week since he scored again, but up until like a couple weeks, like last week, his XG was right about 5 exactly. So he was hitting his expected numbers. Fire just weren't getting him the ball enough. Nope. And so this Toronto game was a great example of there's more than one way to get him the ball. And one of them is press high, including him being part of that press and win it back, and then he can create his own shot. He's proven that if you get him the ball, he's going to make things happen. And it certainly seems like that's another benefit of the current tactical system we are seeing from the Fire. Our final CHGO midseason superlative is our most improved, and I think we're going to give that to Arnaud Souquet because, again, this isn't a category we have a lot of choice for here. As we've talked about, a lot of the important people are some of the newer guys. We've got guys like Brian Gutierrez, who was okay but not great for a lot of last year. But, again, saying he's most improved wouldn't really fit, I don't think. Souquet's a guy who came in last year, struggled mightily. At the beginning of this season, found himself, actually, I should say last season, he lost out on the depth chart to Jonathan Dean at that right back spot. Coming into this season, it wasn't clear what his role was going to be because Arigoni comes in at right back. Gutman and Gasper both come in on the left side. There was some reporting that Souquet was being pretty actively shopped and that maybe there was talk of him going back to France. Next thing you know, he has a green card. And he's taken on, I got to imagine it's taken some humility for him to kind of just wait his turn. But as he's been asked to fill gaps as they pop up, he's done a pretty admirable job. And I think, you talked about your defensive worries when you see him in a lineup. I think he's done quite a bit, particularly recently since this shift, to calm some fears that we might have had about him still being on this roster when the year kicked off.
Yeah, humility is definitely one thing. Like, we talked about this on previous episodes, how the amount of money Arnaud Souquet gets for a right back in comparison to other right backs in the league is a lot more. So
he's a well-paid man.
He's a well-paid man. He's a well-paid Frenchman. And the fact, like you mentioned, that he got benched for Jonathan Dean, who came up from USL, like that says something. So he essentially had to go back to the drawing board or just, I guess, take a real deep look in the mirror and just essentially be like, okay, I have to take what chances I've got and just run with it and defend with it. So now in this situation that he's been put into, he has shown that. And do I think he's still going to come improve upon that? I think so. But he's definitely going to have to when you have Arigoni, and of course you still have Jonathan Dean vying in there, all battling for that. It's that healthy competition, That's something that really sets a fire underneath you, honestly.
Pun intended, I'm sure. No, and that's the thing in general, though. This idea that if everybody's healthy, maybe the Fire have depth in some positions, which has not been a thing we can say very much in recent years. So, no, if Souquet can fill in at that right-sided center back role, if he can fill in at the wing back roles, both left and right side. Again, he has shown that he is a versatile, valuable veteran player, and it seems like, again, everybody's mood and kind of standing seems to have gone up over the last month, but he's certainly been a visible guy in that example. My one other nominee here might have been Carlos Terán, simply because he is staying on the field more and playing well. But again, well, it's again, we're trying not to be too prisoner of the moment here. And
True.
Again, we've always known Carlos. Carlos has shown in spurts his ability. It's just, can he put it together and do it consistently? And we are seeing more of that. All right, before we get out of here, a couple notes. Fire's upcoming schedule. On Saturday, they are in Orlando, a place that has been multiple times voted the worst place to play in MLS because of the weather and the heat. I would imagine that if it's 90-some degrees here this week, it cannot be any more pleasant in Orlando, so I'm sure the guys will be working hard to stay hydrated. Following Saturday, then, they are in Seattle as they continue to rack up these frequent flyer miles. Toronto, Orlando, then Seattle. Sounders are in the middle of a bit of an odd season. They've gotten better since some early struggles, but no, that's also never an easy road trip to go make. The Fire are back home on July 3rd against the Philadelphia Union. Philly having a tough season. They looked pretty strong as a team when the Fire played them the first week of the year. That felt like a really good result, like the Fire really maybe getting an upset there and getting a point out of that game, but maybe not so much. Philly has struggled. Also, though, that is the due date for the Olympic roster, so there will be things to talk about there, maybe with the likes of Chris Brady and Brian Gutierrez on the Fire, but also the likes of Jack McGlynn, Nathan Harriel, Quinn Sullivan on the Union, all vying for spots on that roster. We will be back here in 2 weeks' time. Thank you, everybody, for listening and tuning into this episode of the CHGO Fire Podcast. Again, a big extra thank you to everybody at WLS 890 who made Saturday possible. And if you made the effort to tune in and go find that stream online, thank you, thank you, thank you. It is much, much appreciated. Alan Krolikowski, thank you for being here. We've been trying to have you on this show for a while. Glad we were finally able to make it happen.
Let's go. Yeah, all because of university struggles and just life struggles. But I'm here now. Yay.
Yeah, we have added Alan to the, what I guess I would call the bullpen of talent we have rotating through. Shout out to Greg Braggs behind the scenes today, handling the ones and twos and the production for us. CHGO Red Stars is up next. If you're watching on YouTube, you'll have to switch links, but go ahead and go join Grant Dorsey and I for that. We don't have any wins to talk about, but there are lots of interesting off-field things going on in Red Stars land. If you were listening to this as a podcast, please go find that episode next, wherever you get your podcast. This has been the CHGO Fire Podcast. I'm Alex Campbell, and I'll see you next time.
We all silly like the mayor.